Used to think the night bus was the safest place for someone who didn't want to be alone. There's a strange comfort in sitting among half-asleep strangers whose lives brush against yours for just a few stops before disappearing forever. But everything changed the morning I realized one of those strangers wasn't disappearing at all. He was waiting, and maybe he always had been. It started at 3:07 a.m. on a Tuesday. I remember the exact time because I glanced at my phone in confusion as the bus slowed down in a place where no bus ever stops. I rode that line for years, Line 47, the graveyard circuit through the old industrial district. But that night the driver tapped a button, the doors hissed open, and a man in a pale gray coat quietly stepped off into the darkness. No one else reacted. Half the riders were asleep or pretending to be. The only light outside came from an old warehouse lamp barely hanging from a twisted metal pole. The man walked straight into the beam like he knew it would be waiting for him. I didn't think much of it until the next morning, scrolling through the bus company's complaint page to write about the unauthorized stop. But then I paused. Someone had posted about the same thing at almost the exact time, but 16 years ago. Same line. Same stop that wasn't a stop. And in the blurry low-resolution image attached, a man in a pale gray coat stood under the same flickering warehouse lamp. I told myself it was just coincidence. People repeat patterns. Coats look similar. But the more I looked at that pixelated silhouette, the more it felt like he was staring back at me. By the next night, I'd convinced myself to forget it. I forced myself onto the 3 a.m. bus even though something in my stomach twisted the moment I stepped inside. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The same driver nodded at me. The same smell of cold metal and antiseptic chemicals hung in the air. It all felt so ordinary until 3:07 again. When the driver slowed the bus, the doors hissed open and the same man, same coat, same posture, stepped off at the same non-existent stop. This time I felt a chill so sharp it hurt. My breath came out in a thin cloud even though the bus wasn't cold. But what scared me most wasn't that he got off. It was that the driver looked directly at me in the rearview mirror, like he knew I was watching, and his eyes didn't look tired or annoyed. They looked warning. I didn't sleep that day, or the next. For a week I watched the same silent ritual. 3:07 a.m. Bus slows. Man steps off. Walks into the darkness. The driver looks at me like he's silently begging me not to ask. And I didn't. Not until the night the camera glitch happened. I was scrolling through old transit footage uploaded by rail fans and urban explorers. People who obsessively catalog everything from abandoned rail lines to malfunctioning signals. I typed, Line 47 night 3 a.m. into the search bar, expecting nothing but shaky cell phone videos. Instead, I found a time-stamped clip from 1998. And there he was. Same man. Same coat. Standing at the side of the road as the bus passed him. He didn't board that time. He just stood there, illuminated for a split second, face completely still, eyes fixed on the lens as if he knew the camera would capture him decades later. My fingers went numb on the trackpad. I tried to remind myself people don't stay the same for 25 years. Hairlines change. Posture changes. Clothing styles change. But that man, he hadn't aged a minute. I told my sister about it. Well, I tried. She laughed at first, then frowned when she realized I wasn't joking. You're obsessing again, she said, worry lines creasing her forehead. You're working nights. You're stressed. People see patterns when they're exhausted. She meant well, but her kindness stung more than dismissal. It made me feel like a child inventing monsters in the dark. So I stopped talking about it. But I didn't stop watching. By the third week, I memorized everything about the man. The way he held his hands slightly too still, like his arms didn't quite belong to him. The way he blinked half as often as a normal person. The way he seemed to glide more than walk. The world felt like clay around him, malleable, bending. And then came the night he didn't get off. He stayed seated 2 rows ahead of me, back straight, head tilted slightly as if listening to something I couldn't hear. For the first time I heard him speak, but not real words. More like a low murmur, breath vibrating in an unnatural cadence. Syllables bending in ways English doesn't bend. My pulse hammered so loudly I thought he'd hear it. 3:07, the bus didn't slow. The driver's hands tightened around the wheel. His knuckles turned white. The passenger in gray stopped murmuring. And he turned around. I froze. His eyes, God, I can still see them. Not glowing, not monstrous. Just wrong in a subtle, agonizing way, like they were too clear, too polished, reflecting more light than they received. He stared at me like someone waking up from a long dream and recognizing a familiar face. Then he said my name. No one else on that bus knew my name. I rode alone. I didn't talk to anyone. Yet he said it perfectly. The syllables slid from his mouth like he'd practiced them 1,000 times. Come with me. 2 words. Calm. Emotionless. But something beneath them, an echo, a vibration, sent a jolt down my spine. I stumbled up from my seat so quickly the driver flinched. No, I whispered. The man in gray tilted his head. Not disappointed, not angry. Just curious. As if my fear was new data. We are out of time, he said. That was when the bus lights flickered. Just for a split second. But when they came back, the road outside wasn't the road. The warehouses were gone. The city skyline had vanished. Instead, the windows looked out onto a black expanse filled with drifting particles of pale blue light, like dust floating in a sunbeam, but suspended in complete darkness. The bus kept moving, though the wheels no longer touched anything. Before I could scream, the lights flickered again. The real world snapped back into place so violently I lurched forward and nearly fell. The man stood now, facing me fully. His coat seemed to ripple like liquid fabric, responding to a breeze that wasn't there. The driver didn't move. I don't think he could. No more delays, the man whispered. Something in me broke. Not courage, desperation. I lunged for the emergency cable and yanked. The bus screeched to a halt so abruptly I hit the floor. The doors hissed open and I ran. I didn't look back. I sprinted across empty streets until my lungs burned, until my legs trembled, until the world blurred around me. I reached my apartment with shaking hands, locked the door, pushed furniture against it even though I knew rationally it wouldn't help. But nothing happened. No knock, no footsteps, no whisper of my name through the vent. For a moment I convinced myself it had all been hallucination, a stress-induced collapse of reality. But the next morning, there were footprints in the hallway. Damp, faint, leading to my door and stopping right at the threshold. Small details spiraled after that. My electronics glitched constantly. Light bulbs flickered only when I walked beneath them. I'd wake up with small circular marks on my skin. Not bruises, not bites. Clean, geometric indentations that vanished by evening. I stopped riding the bus. I stopped sleeping. One night, in a haze of exhaustion, I opened my laptop and pulled up every transit camera I could access. I traced line 47 backwards, through years of archived videos, decades of forgotten footage. He was there, always there, sometimes boarding, sometimes standing outside, sometimes just a blur near the corner of the frame, but always at 3:07 a.m. And then I found something that made my breath catch. A frame from the year 2001. The man in gray sitting on the bus. And next to him, a child with short hair and a red backpack. Me. I stared at the screen until tears blurred my vision. I had never ridden a night bus at that age. I had never owned a red backpack. I told myself it had to be another kid. Someone who just resembled me. But deep inside, something cracked open. Something I'd always known but never wanted to face. A memory surfaced. Not fully, like a photograph submerged in murky water. A flash of light. A sense of floating. A voice whispering my name with impossible calm. A hand, not quite a hand, touching my forehead. I slammed my laptop shut and curled into myself. I sobbed until my throat hurt. When the knocking started, I almost didn't lift my head. It was very soft. 2 taps. Pause. 2 taps again. I knew who it was. The furniture blocking the door vibrated slightly, not from force, but from resonance. Like something on the other side was humming. Then his voice seeped through the wood. You were never supposed to see the footage. I clamped my hands over my ears. Leave me alone, I croaked. You are late. Those words felt like a thread tightening around my ribs. I don't know what you want, I whispered. Silence. Then, gently, I want you to remember. The temperature in the room dropped so sharply my breath fogged. The furniture slid away from the door by itself, scraping softly across the floor. Not violently, almost respectfully. The lock clicked. The door opened. He stepped inside, coat glimmering faintly as if holding its own light. But his expression was not predatory. It was familiar, painfully familiar, in a way that made my head ache. You left before your integration was complete, he said. Your memory was not stable. The life you built was an improvisation. Admirable but temporary. Integration. The word pulsed in my skull like an unwelcome heartbeat. You're lying, I choked out. He didn't blink. You think you are human because you were raised among them, because you learned their words, their fears, their loneliness. But your origin is not theirs. My legs gave out. I slid to the floor. He crouched in front of me. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't triumphant. He looked like someone gently waking a child from a long dream. You were one of the first to be placed, he said softly. A bridge species. Prototype. Born here but patterned after us. Designed to blend. To learn. To feel as they feel. That was the purpose. My breaths came in shallow bursts. You were supposed to come with me each cycle, he continued. To stabilize. To realign. But something happened in your third year. A disruption. You fled the rendezvous point. We tried to retrieve you, but humans intervened. You were adopted. Integrated into a family. The monitoring continued, but your development diverged. I shook my head violently. No, I have memories. I have a past. Yes, he said. One we built. I wanted to scream, but some part of me, the part that had always felt off-center, always slightly detached from other people, always sensing things before they happened, knew he was telling the truth. He extended a hand. If you come with me now, we can repair what was broken. And if I don't? My voice was barely a whisper. His eyes dimmed slightly. Then you will continue to fracture. The anomalies will worsen. Your perception will collapse. Your identity will disassemble. The room wavered. The walls began shimmering like heat haze. I felt something inside me resonate with his presence. Like two tuning forks vibrating in sync. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I whispered. You were not ready to choose. And now the choice is necessary. I looked at his hand. Long fingers, perfectly still. Part of me wanted to take it, to end the confusion, to finally know what I was. But another part remembered my sister, my tiny apartment, the taste of coffee on lonely mornings, the imperfect, messy, painful world I had tried so hard to belong to. I don't want to leave, I said, tears spilling down my cheeks. Even if none of it is real, it's mine. He stared at me for a long time. Then something unexpected happened. He withdrew his hand. If that is your choice, he said quietly, then you may stay. But understand, your existence will not be without consequence. Neither for you, nor for them. What does that mean? He didn't answer. He simply stepped back into the hallway, his outline flickering as if fading from one layer of reality to another. Before he vanished entirely, he said, "We will watch, and when the time comes, you will remember everything, whether you wish to or not." Then he was gone. The hallway was empty, but on the floor outside my door, a single object remained. A small circular device, smooth and silver, the size of a coin. When I picked it up, it pulsed with a faint warmth, like a heartbeat. I didn't sleep that night. I don't sleep much anymore. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see flashes. Another sky, another world, shapes that move in ways bodies shouldn't move. And sometimes I hear him murmuring in that strange cadence. Not threatening, not angry, just waiting. I still ride the bus sometimes. Not at 3 a.m. Never at 3 a.m. But occasionally, even during the day, I catch a glimpse of someone in a pale gray coat reflected in the windows. Not close, not approaching, just watching. And the truth is, I don't know which possibility terrifies me more, that I'm one of them, or that I'm not but they believe I am. Either way, the world doesn't feel stable anymore. The lines between reality and memory blur. Faces feel like masks. Sounds echo where they shouldn't. And every time the lights flicker, I half expect to look outside and see that black expanse again, swirling with pale blue particles. Maybe one night I'll step off the bus where there is no stop. Maybe I already have, and the rest of this is just the afterimage. But until the moment everything finally collapses into truth, I'm here, walking among humans, pretending to be one of them, hoping no one looks too closely, because somewhere in the city at 3:07 a.m., a man in a gray coat still gets off the bus in a place that doesn't exist. And he is waiting for me,